in order to actually save these kids. But the question is, what is it that we can actually do that's going to make these kids who are already at high risk or already committing crimes, what can we do to make it stop it? What can we do to stop this whole violence? So, another article that I went and I did, that I found really interesting also, it's called The Supply and Demand for Guns to Juveniles. So it takes a deeper look and it said, how do we control or prevent youth violence? What is it that we need to do to stop youth violence? So, which is really interesting, a really interesting fact that I found is that guns are actually the second leading cause of injury death among adolescents in nationwide, not only in the United States, but nationwide. So this study was actually conducted in California, in Oakland, and they conducted this study. They did this program called East Oakland Partnership to Reduce Juvenile Gun Violence, which, in other words, they, just for short, they call it Oakland's Gun Tracing Project. A quote that was really interesting that was quoted actually by a 16-year-old boy who lived in Oakland in 1999. He said, "Why is it that we can walk to get any kind of gun, drug, or alcohol that we want, but we have to take the bus to get school supplies?" Makes you really think about it. How easy it is to actually get guns in the street. And this is something, a huge issue that we have. I know right now that we have in the whole United States, especially in Chicago, since it's, one of the top, you know, murder rates, has the top highest murder rates, in the United States. It's because it's not hard for a kid to get a gun nowadays. It's not hard for me to get a gun off the streets. I could just easily go make one phone call and I'm gonna go ahead and get that gun. I don't need to go purchase that gun the legal way. I don't need to get my FOID card. I don't need to go ahead and register that gun because everything's given to us so easily, and that's the problem. But taking back a look, take a deeper look into who's actually the one supplying these kids with these guns. What is it that we can do? Not only do we need to go ahead and try to do, programs that are going to prevent youth from actually getting the guns and all that, but it's like we need to go ahead and do more programs that's going to go ahead and stop the people, the adults, giving these kids the guns. So, of course, this, the gun tracing project in Oakland of, California. So, it was a project that where they used 263 juveniles, in which 170 were suspects slash perpetrators and 93 were victims. In this whole project, they actually recovered 132 guns. 132 guns recovered just from one project. And not only think about it, just one project, but just one little city in Oakland, in Chicago. Not in Chicago, sorry, in California. That's 132 guns that were recovered just from that city. Imagine how many, just think about all the cities that there's in one state. Think about how many states we have in the United States. So now just go ahead and multiply that by 100, a million. Makes you think about all these guns that are actually in the street. And it's so funny because out of all these guns that were recovered, only 55% of these cases were traced to somebody that actually had a license to purchase guns. There is an article that really had me thinking, and it was actually a pretty good article. It's called A Father's Journey from Murdering to Forgiveness. Basically, in this article, it's about a father who loses his youngest son to gun violence. So it basically takes place. So the kid, he was, he was delivering pizza one night. He goes to go deliver pizza to some little gang members. And then when he arrives at his destination, the gang members, they tell this other little gang member who's 14-year-olds, they tell the kid, "Oh, go outside and get the pizza." So there was there was an issue, there was an argument, disagreement, something like that, that actually caused this young gang member to go ahead and kill the pizza boy. And it's just so crazy. Just reading this whole article by itself, because it makes you think like, man, that can be my kid. So, the kid that the one who committed the murder, his name was Tony. He was actually a really young kid. He was 14 years old. Okay, 14 years old. And he committed a murder. So he was actually the first juvenile in California to be tried as an adult and sentenced to prison.